Right, so tough choices. Politicians love that phrase, don't they? Tough choices, usually just before they do something horrible, something that will hit us in our pockets or remove some form of public service many of us rely on, deny funding or inflict misery in some way. It's always a tough choice for them to do, isn't it? It's one of the most misused terms going in British politics, though, as well as one of the most dishonest. And right now, it's the buzzword surrounding the politics and spending plans, or lack thereof, coming from Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves. Reeves recently wrote that she didn't feel taxation was the way to prosperity. I did a whole video explaining why she's ridiculous for saying this the other day. But in the same article, she also wrote that she had no plans that required £12 billion worth of money. That should pique curiosity, shouldn't it? Because right now the country is in an absolute state of, after rampant Tory mismanagement and the last lot of annual government spending figures I've been able to find, which was 2019 to 2020, somebody's not doing the admin, clearly, was £842 billion. More recent spending is almost certainly going to be higher due to the pandemic and cost of living crisis. But if we take this annual figure alone, with Reeves saying she hasn't even got £12 billion of spending plans to change anything needed, so why tax more? Doesn't sound like Labour plans to change very much at all from what the Tories are doing right now, does it? If everything is running fine and in our interests, why are the Tories doing so badly, in which case? And why is Starmer and Reeves looking like they're on course for a landslide, according to the latest polls, when they won't apparently change a single thing? Of course, tough choices was the phraseology of the Tories as they came into power in 2010. That pesky global financial crisis that, according to them, was all the fault of the UK government, of the Labour Party at that time. They left us bankrupt, of course, even though they didn't. Of course, the media sold that view heavily. They decided a change in government was due, and so in came David Cameron and George Osborne with their tough choices, their austerity, to NHS reforms. Reform always being a bad word when it comes to the NHS, basically meant bringing in more of the private sector, removed NHS capacity, left the country unprepared for a pandemic, to be honest, has led to the massive waiting lists we have today. And of course, Brexit, again, Cameron's fault, not a tough choice, but the ham-faced pig botherer's own arrogance, that the British public wouldn't vote against his position, reviled by so many of us as he had become by then, and he remains resolutely unapologetic for it to this day. We lost so much in the way of NHS staff, reliant on foreign talent as our NHS is. That's just one area, of course. Austerity has led to depressed wages, so wealth inequality is now greater than ever. Our local services have been destroyed, libraries shut and the like. There's been no investment, no house building despite a housing crisis. That apparently is a tough choice, to leave us all homeless. But the politicians themselves aren't, are they? The economy has been decimated. Those Tories apparently the economically trustworthy party, proving yet again that they are not and never have been, barely avoiding recession, inflation running rampantly and not coming down, the sort of people that will come after a benefit claimant for a couple £100 that they can't afford to pay back, that they may have been overpaid through no fault of their own, but millions in pandemic fraud gets written off, and Michelle Mone, as I understand, has just bought herself a new private plane, or should I say, actually, we probably have. Why is it a tough choice to chase a job seeker but not a millionaire who's committed massive levels of fraud? Where have we as a country lost the most money? So where should we be going after, and why aren't we? Rishi Sunak's 5 pledges that he thinks success on warrants re-electing him are all based on Tory failure before him. Grow the economy. Well, who screwed it up from day one in 2010? Tory party. Halve inflation. Well, who was giving away government money like sweets during the pandemic to the wrong people for defective stuff because often they were your mates? Tories did. Spending like water with no returns drive inflation. So as much as it has been a global phenomenon, this inflation issue, this Tory government has made it worse here. Get the national debt down is a stupid claim, and it's the sum of all public money and government assets, the money in our pockets, and not a debt at all. So this is just a Tory lie. The only way you get that down is to stop borrowing to invest and make people intentionally poorer. Oh, look what they're doing right now. Tory problem again. Get NHS waiting list down. Well, I've already said how they'll go up. And as for stopping the boats, his last pledge, that's an entirely Boris Johnson Brexit deal inflicted problem, that those numbers have risen with no returns policy negotiated and put in place because he wasn't on top of his brief. All of it is a Tory mess, and Labour, riding high in the polls, apparently can't see a reason to spend £12 billion, according to Reeves, to fix any of that. The Tories have made an absolute mess of this country, and all Labour can see is the tough choices of carrying on with that, a bit of wrist wringing There is one very easy choice Labour, the Labour Party, the party of the workers that it is supposed to be, could make, and won't. That's a wealth tax. Starmer and Reeves could talk of the tough choices they will have to make, but the easiest one of all is the one they're running away from. On one hand, you have the easy choice to lay down a wealth tax. A 1% tax on all wealth above £10 million would raise £10 billion. A wealth tax of 5% above £500,000, that would raise an incredible £260 billion. Imagine what could be done with that cash. But on the other hand, it's the tough choices. In other words, more Tory austerity. And if those who would label me a Tory for attacking Labour, as some people tiresomely still do, I really don't know whose time they're wasting more, mine or their own. There are a litany of reasons to believe this is what will happen under a Starmer regime, and that voting Labour will change nothing, all at a time when most people believe change is needed, as the swing to Labour in polls shows. It should be pointed out that actually Boris Johnson pronounced austerity dead, too lazy to actually make it a reality. But Labour are pledging in their tough choices a resurrection of it, despite the economic damage it did by making us all poorer. Labour don't offer any change from that. And this is a message I make no apologies for hammering home repeatedly. Use that cash, raise that cash from a wealth tax, use it to renationalise our public services which are bleeding us dry. All that money going into the pockets of shareholders instead of investing in the services. It's wrong, we've got a poor service for it and a more expensive one. Fix it. Energy bills rampantly skyrocketed and Sunak gave them all even more public money to offset all of our bills, again stoking inflation as the government printed money and got nothing back by taxation in return. And for what? The sake of not taking control of our assets again that was stolen from us. That should have been the easy choice. Instead, the Tories' hard choice was to sadly saddle us with that debt further down the road. Starmer pledged to renationalise and lied, but the proof lies in the profits of the price gouging as big oil companies, the big six posted record profits, outsourcing companies have made similarly record profits, and goodness knows the banksters have been laughing all the way to the, well, bank too for quite some time. A wealth tax would go a long way to fixing all of this. And if Labour wanted to genuinely fix the country and not just carry on where the Tories leave off, they'd be calling for it, as the Green Party are, already having pledged a £70 billion wealth tax themselves. So sitting between the two examples I cited earlier. Renationalisation made possible. Taxation brings down inflation, so that will be dealt with. Investment in the services the Tories have decimated. This is what we expect from a Labour government. And the choice to do that is right before them. Theirs for the taking. But this isn't a Labour government in waiting. It's a red Tory government in waiting. So forget the wealth tax. Reeves won't have a bar from it. In fact, she's running scared of tax rises full stop in case the Tories say mean things about her. She's ruled out income tax rises and capital gains tax rises. And on ordinary and low-level wages, I totally agree with that. But she can tax higher rates. She's an economist. She knows how taxation works. So she's consciously making the decision that benefits her red Tory-centric interests and not what benefits the country. And if you want further reasoning as to why this easy choice no longer is an easy choice for Keir Starmer's Labour, it is because he's run his party that way, shaped in the manner of Tony Blair and Peter Mandelson's, as it is, because now the big donors are back. So the membership can kiss his backside and the trade unions as well. Way past time they all woke up to the fact Labour's full of Tories and they need to take their funding elsewhere. That isn't, of course, to say that there aren't those in the Labour Party pushing back a little bit. Some 20 Labour MPs, and not exclusively from the left wing of the party, have signed an early day motion, as an example, demanding that Starmer and Reeves have a rethink about scrapping the two-child benefit cap. But if only 20 MPs consider this something important enough to approach Starmer and Reeves over, to lift 1.3 million kids out of poverty or dramatically improve their lives, with Starmer verging on a landslide, as the polls show, with him ensuring every candidate going is parachuted in a person of his choosing, of his faction, then 20 dissenting MPs, should he get that landslide at the next general election, well, they'll amount to nothing whatsoever. So Kid Starver will remain the Kid Starver. Vote Labour to get the Tories out. It's a farce when you actually look at their actions. Their choices realise they are no different. It's no good getting one lot of Tories out if you're just going to vote another lot in. Because once they're in, it's too late. They don't need you again for 5 years. And when it finally dawns on you that this truly is just a Tory B team, who are you going to vote for next time? The other Tories back in again? Or do you finally decide you need to think of something else? In which case, can I gently suggest you don't wait 5 years to start thinking like that, start doing so now instead. Thanks for watching. I hope you found the video useful. Please do like, share and subscribe if you did, and have your own say on this topic by leaving a comment below and joining in the conversation. Meanwhile, there's a video recommendation for you where Rachel Reeves gave us all 4 reasons to dump Labour just the other day, just in case you need a little bit more convincing. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.